Hello, hello, here we are again coming to you from the Paranormal World Show under the umbrella of Broadcast Team Alpha, coming to you on 44 different platforms around the world. And we're going to have some fun. And this is going to be a learning experience for those of you out there that is a little curious about what's behind the curtain, because we have been convinced there is a curtain until we decide that maybe it isn't. So anyway, yeah, my name is Aage, and I'll be the host here, and I have a wonderful guest with me, and Marilynn Hughes, and she's going to teach us some of the mechanics of what we can do to get out of the body and have an out-of-body experience, which I think is a much better term than astral travel because may not necessarily be astrally all the time. And now we are also transmitting on Conscious Awakening Network. You got to go visit those people. ConsciousAwakeningNetwork.org, and go over there. They have close to 50 different shows over there that talk about all the stuff that we need to know about. And if you are watching on YouTube right now, that's the place to be because we can monitor the chat room and we can have conversations while the show is going on. You can ask questions and talk to other people in the chat room and have some fun with it. There's always more excitement on the live chat room than there is a lot of other places on the 44 platforms that we don't get numbers or don't have a chat room for. Anyway, I want to say a few things about Marilynn. She is returning to Broadcasting Alpha. I think it's close to a year ago now that she was here last time. She is the founder of the Out of Body Travel Foundation. And listen, really close. Listen here. She has written over 140 books. 140 books. I mean, she's putting out books like bakers are putting out donuts. I mean, this is this is phenomenal. And she has written for about 40 different magazines. She's got about 18 different CDs out there on how to do out of body travel and what you can see and learn by doing it. And she is also, and she's written on religion, religious mysticism, and she also had art pieces. Much of what is available on her website, Out of Body Travel Foundation, that's outofbodytravel.org. And a lot of the books are actually free also. So this is something that you got to go visit. For those of you that like to surf the web at the same time you're listening, that is outofbodytravel.org. She has worked with James von Prague and also with astronaut Edgar Mitchell on Foundation for Extraordinary Experiences. Now, just two or three of her books is Encyclopedia of Ancient Sacred Text, Voice of the Prophets. Let me say something about prophets. In the old days, they used to call them prophets. These days, we call them really good psychics. We don't use the word prophets anymore because I think there is a lot of commonalities between those two. Even though back in the old days, the prophets they had visitations. Now that's a different story. And then another book that's wisdom, the wisdom of the ages. And there we go. How do we get wisdom? Well, we find someone that we resonate, that we feel have wisdom, and we learn from them and then we apply it. And that's why I want you to listen really close to this show, because this show will change your life if you do something with it. Because also in the second half, we talked before the show, and she's going to be teaching you a few things that you need to know in order to get out of the body and have these experiences. There are several different methods from it. I am also a traveler, an out of body traveler, and there are different methods. I just want to vibrate myself out, but there are other things that may work better for people. Then we're going to talk about that. So hang with us on this one because you're going to learn something that very few people know how to do. And with that, welcome to the show, Marilynn.
Thanks, Augie. Great to be back.
Yeah, this has been long coming. We need to do this more often.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
Yeah, 140 books. Man, oh man, that's phenomenal. And when we talked before, we're going to do a little teaching in the second half, but before that, let's talk about something that I know is on a lot of people's mind. What happens after we drop the body and there's something going on back there that very few people know about, and then they find themselves back here again. They do believe in this concept of reincarnation, but
Mhm.
is it mandatory to come back to? There are people that I talk to say, oh, this was so bad this lifetime that I never want to come back here again and do this chocolate over again. But is it mandatory, or how does that come about?
Well, I would tell you also that I've never met anybody who wants to come back. So I think it's very common. I think that that's a very common reaction and a very common question. Actually, people ask that to me all the time too. They're like, I don't want to come back. And it's like, well, um, we do have things that we can do to accelerate the process of, the ascension process of the soul that will help us to become more likely to achieve the spiritual goals, so to speak, that we need to achieve in this lifetime so that the reincarnation cycle is ended and therefore we won't need to come back. A lot of us do end up needing to come back. I don't know that I could say whether or not it's mandatory, but I do understand that a lot of souls do end up coming back a lot, and that eventually it becomes a choice of the soul that is based on the what the soul needs to experience in order to again achieve or try to achieve these certain types of understandings and soul qualities that they have failed to acquire in previous existences. And
Mm.
so what we have to understand then is, okay, since I think we have a consensus of probably 100% that nobody wants to do it again, right? I think we can say that maybe if that's the consensus that no one wants to do it, then we need the next step, which is what is necessary then for us to actually end the cycle. And what that is, everybody, just by the nature of the fact that you're incarnate here, you know that you have karmic purification to undergo and that you need to enter into what is known as a path of purification, which has to do with an intrusive self-examination of your soul and the things that you believe to be true, the things that you hold within your heart. And that process energizes these passages within your soul energetically to assist the soul to reach higher and higher levels of vibration and frequency and understanding as a result, which eventually leads the soul into the higher spaces and understandings that it needs to achieve in order for that not to be necessary anymore, which is basically the awakening, the enlightenment that the soul needs to achieve in this life.
Mm.
And we mentioned the prophets, saints, mystics, sages, and ascetics. They are a little bit different than, just a regular psychic. These are souls who actually achieved that ascension from this realm in this world and finished up. They finished their last lifetime here, and oftentimes they left their final words, their final understanding, their final enlightenments in these ancient sacred texts for those of us to, to come that were coming after them to go find, the gold that I call it. I call it the
Yeah.
gold that they left behind, which is the secrets to that ascension of the soul that they achieved. And they're all similar but different.
Hmm.
And they're all these different facets of this great, beautiful diamond that really, in the end, is God, but it is also an emanation of what our own soul needs to achieve in its own crystalline brilliance in order to become pure enough to achieve that ability to ascend from this realm and move on to the next level of evolution. And what that is, it's much simpler than we actually think it is, because it does start with um, basically intrusive self-scrutiny, a self-examination, what is known in theology as mystical theology. Mystical theology is the science of the soul, where you do go through this examination, and there are many, many, many mystical texts that are written in this field that people can
Yeah.
read. And so these texts, I'll give just a few so that people who don't know about them, like St. John of the Cross, The Ascent of Mount Carmel, An Introduction to the Devout Life by St. Francis de Sales, The Spiritual Life by Father Adolphe Tanqueray, The Soul of the Apostolate by Father Dom Chotard. These are texts that are literally pure gold, and there's hundreds more. But these are texts that will take a soul deep into its interiors and assist the soul in rooting out all of its fetters, its hindrances, its cravings, and the sins. And what happens is, as the soul starts doing this, they become more sensitive to uh, the things they have done wrongly in the past, but also the things that maybe they have misperceived or misunderstood. And what does often happen, it doesn't always happen, but what often happens is that souls will begin to have dreams. Some people will have out of body experiences where they will be reminded of events in their lives.
Yeah.
And they are given the opportunity then to remember and to go back. And part of the purpose of this, oftentimes it will generate a lot of guilt and shame. But the purpose of this is actually much more important than just generating that guilt and shame. It is this great understanding of our own littleness before God, of our own need for forgiveness. It
Mhm.
humbles us to the point where we realize that we ourselves are in need of a great deal of forgiveness, and we start becoming much more gracious in the way that we forgive others. We remember the
Mm.
words of Christ, where he said, "We will be judged in the manner in which we judge. We will be forgiven in the manner in which we forgive." And we
Yeah.
start actually practicing that, living it out. And it becomes an energetic change within the soul. That becomes a stream. If you see what I'm doing with my hands, it's a stream of energy that changes the motion that is going through this soul. It changes it. And so as the soul begins this process, several different things can happen. If we're talking about it from the status of out of body travel, some people will have experiences, whether they come in dreams or out of body travel experiences. It can come in both ways, where they will also begin to remember past lifetimes. and they might start seeing things that they've done in past lifetimes. And some of these things might really surprise them. You
Yeah.
know, they might be things that they would not have done in this lifetime. So, you know, oftentimes we start with what we have done in this lifetime, and we have to kind of purify those elements. We have to humble ourselves before our own imperfection. And then what happens is we're taken into past existences where we might, so like for instance, in my own, I was taken into a past existence where I was perfectly fine with slavery. And that really shocked me. I was like, what? That no, you know, because that's just totally foreign to me in my current self. But in a previous life, I lived in the South and I was perfectly fine with slavery. And it was like that was just so mind-boggling. You know,
Yeah.
so when I say you might be doing things that are completely conflictive to what you have become, and as you go even further back, you think about what we know in our history of our world. You know, you may find you've been a crusader. You may find you were one of these barbarians. You may find because we were all doing things that were, because these things happened in the history of our human species. And so we may find all sorts of things that we are not happy with. We might even be very ashamed of that. But what comes together, if you chronicle these events and put it together, you may begin to see certain patterns that relate to you in the present, and also just as patterns that show you the progress that your soul has made over time immemorial. So let's
Mhm.
say you were some kind of crazy barbarian 2000 years ago, but then maybe there's more. So, you know, maybe that isn't really totally relevant to your
Yeah.
world now.
Yeah,
But
that's me.
but you know, you may have, let's say you were like, so I have a lifetime where I was a crazy barbarian a couple thousand years ago. I'm not even sure how long ago that person lived, but a while ago. But I did a lot of bad things to people and their necks. And so in this current lifetime, I lived with a neck injury my entire life. And that's
Mm.
from this several thousand years ago. Very well deserved, right?
Hmm.
And you know, and it's very hard to, it's hard for me to relate to this being a part of my soul's past. But we all have these things because our souls branch out into these multiplicities.
Yeah.
There's, you know, hundreds of these lifetimes, and we have experienced many types of things. But then what happens is your experiences will center in on what are the things that you need to reconcile in this current life. And in this current life, the things that were important for me to reconcile had to do with relationships, with other people that were close relationships, so spousal relationships, things like that. And
Yeah.
so in my case, I was being shown primarily these types of lifetimes where this particular issue was something I had you know, particularly incarnated to work through this particular issue. And you're like, wow, I see that this particular situation has happened over and over and over again. And I've handled it like 10 different ways, right?
Hmm.
And then they're all different. And then you're like, okay, so now I understand that all of those 10 different ways did not resolve this situation correctly.
Yeah.
So this time around, I have to be very creative and I have to try to understand what God might be telling me or in trying to instruct me to do differently this time that
Hmm.
will make this different, will make this a holy expression of love in this present day.
Yeah. But let me ask you then, we're talking about coming back over and over again. Is there a way to get off the karmic wheel? A simple solution when we on the other side? and we decide, okay, I've had enough. There are other jobs out there in the spiritual world that I can do and learn more from. Can we possibly do that?
Well, sometimes there are other options, but no, there are no simple solutions. There, and this is one of the things I've talked about this with on some other programs, that there is a tendency in a lot of spiritual modalities where people want a simple, happy, easy kind of thing. But the reality is, a legitimate, authentic spirituality does require effort from us
Yeah,
for it to actually bear fruit and to be useful and to project us forward into something real and significant. And so, no, there is no simple, quick, solution. This is going to be something which requires something of us. But the other part of that that is so important is that I can tell you that I have never seen someone who put in the effort and came out on the other side who was not ecstatic that they did, because the
yeah,
consequences, the results of that effort are so life altering and earth shattering for them that I usually hear back from them and it's like, thank you so much for showing me this or telling me about this, because this has literally completely changed my life. And I did this, and it may have taken a while. It may have taken a while, but the effort was so profoundly worth it. And
mhm,
so we want to kind of let go of this idea that it has to be some simple solution. We want to get more focused on, let's just do the job. Let's get in there and do what we came here to do. There's a reason why we incarnated. Let's just get in there and be diligent and disciplined and get to the reason why we're here and make it happen.
yeah,
Because when we do that, you're going to find that you're so much happier. You are moving and you are moving forward into the movement, and you are just much more content that way. When you
yeah,
try to do it, when you're in that space where you're like, there's got to be a better way, there's got to be a simple way, there's got to be a way I can avoid looking at all these things, you're feeling constant discontent
yeah. But
because you have to do this.
there's so many distractions too that I mean,
Yes.
this big thing on the wall, called the TV. Boy,
Yes.
oh boy, that can kill people just about spiritually at least because they get there and they get hypnotized. I mean, what
Yes.
what's coming off the TV is rarely any good to speak of
Yes.
spiritually. So we really, you mentioned that word effort. Boy, oh
Yes.
boy, is there a lot of effort, but it does pay off. Let me ask you about karma too, though. Whatever we do here, is it kind of mandatory that we come back and see the reverse of that to learn from what other people experience while you screwing them over or doing something?
Well, one of the things that one of the beauties of that the Catholic Church offers is confession, and one of the reasons why it's so beautiful, and you can see this in the out-of-body travel and mystical state, is that when a person goes to confession and realizes what they've done, and people can do this even if they're not Catholic, by going to God, and when they recognize what they have done to another person and confessing to God, and when appropriate, being willing to make amends to a person that they have harmed, we
Mhm.
can reach out to God for forgiveness, and we will be forgiven. Now, that doesn't mean that the temporal punishment due to sin, which is the karma, which is how does it come back to bite us, right? That's going to be just automatically erased. But part of what we do is we see part of the next part of this path is, you're identifying, and as you identify, you are replacing old habits that are filled with vice with new habits that are filled with virtue. And as you do this, you start putting out new seeds.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily true that, because a lot of people will realize as they start the purification pathway that they've done certain things and they're very unhappy about it and they can't fix it in any particular tangible way in this lifetime. But what they can do is they do reach out for forgiveness from God, and then they replace the dark seeds with seeds of light, and they pull out those roots of darkness. They alter the way that they were thinking that led to that kind of behavior. And when they replace that and they bring in, they're actually removing and revoking the permissions that they've given for the demons of vice, the dark entities of vice to be around them, and they are inviting the angels of virtue to be around them. And you can actually do quite a bit in atonement by simply changing this and then living a different life from
Yeah.
here forward. And so I think it's really important not to worry about things that you can't undo or fix, but focus on things that you can do better now, things that you can do that would make the world a better place
Yeah.
now, or make the lives of those around you that you love better, and things that you can do to love one another as I have loved you, as Christ said. Because what we're learning when we become aware of these things is that we have not loved one another as
Yeah.
Christ loved us. And so we are now trying to change that path, that trajectory to love one another differently in a way that actually propels us in an entirely different direction, and we're moving now towards love instead of towards vice or towards misunderstanding or towards conflict or towards anger. We're now moving towards love. We are
Yeah.
moving towards understanding. We are moving towards listening. We are moving towards kindness. And just by the nature of those movements, and you can't see because my hands are down here, but I'm doing all these strands here, the movements, they're all a strand of energy that is completely changing the trajectory of your life and of your
Yeah.
soul. And it's moving you now forward towards life instead of backwards, which is towards death. And you are moving
Yeah.
now towards God. And what you have to always remember, Jesus told Saint Faustina that he wanted the world to know that his soul was clamoring to spread and shed his mercy on souls, that they just had to ask. And we forget that that is the message that the Lord has given to all of us, from throughout time. The mercy of God. He says, you must first go through the door of my mercy. And you only go through the door of my justice if you reject the door of my mercy. And that's what he said to Saint Faustina. And we forget that even in the panoply of near-death experiences, we see that mercy being shown to souls who are at the point of near death all the time. And we even see it with those who have experienced hellish experiences and who have called out for help or prayed or called the name of Christ, where instantly God sent help.
Yeah. That happens a lot.
Yes.
Absolutely. And what you're talking about reminds me of a saying. I'm good on sayings, and that is that it doesn't matter what the question is, the answer is love. So that's something to take with us.
Absolutely.
And yeah, for
Absolutely.
For those of you that joined us late, we are talking with Marilynn Hughes. We are talking about reincarnation and karma, and it may not be quite as complicated as we may have thought in the past. And now, for those of you that want to know more about her, go to her website, outofbodytravel.org. And now we're going to talk about out of body travel. I like that term better than astral travel because there are ways to travel without taking the astral body with you.
Yes, and it's just more specific because the astral realm is a particular place, and that's the fourth realm, whereas out of body travel lets you know that you're talking about traveling to an infinite number of realms where it's not just the astral plane.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I know there are people out there that they've heard of other people being able to leave the body, go places and do things and see things. I mean, even go to the moon. I did that because that's one of my passions.
Yeah.
But how do we do that? What do we do to prepare ourselves? Or what can we do to be able to step out and not have fear? Because that will bring you back a lot of time. But is it safe? How do we do it? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, there's a lot of ways to approach it. And, the simplest thing is to start with the way it's been done for thousands and thousands of years, which is we start with, you know, the tradition of the prophets, saints, mystics, sages, and ascetics, which is prayer, meditation, and spiritual reading, which has been done for the ages. So you begin with having a strong prayer life, whatever your tradition may be, right? And a strong meditation practice. And I always add a little bit to this. I tell people the meditation that I suggest involves laying down because we want you to be able to have the ability to go out of your body. So you have to be able to allow the body to fall asleep so that your spirit can leave. Also, I always suggest being open to blocks of 3 hours or so of meditation because in the beginning, it takes a while for people to cultivate the depth of consciousness needed to get to the vibrational state. And so you want to be giving yourself these longer periods of meditation so that you can cultivate that. This is harder for people in today's world with all of the electronics, but you got to just turn stuff off. And remember, there is a very time-tested process here. It's been done for 5,000 or more years. And then it's the spiritual reading. You're feeding your soul every day with good spiritual reading.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I would recommend things like, for starters, what I would recommend of my books would be Come to Wisdom's Door, which is a very short book, which is going to go through the fears and the blocks that you're going to face. And then The Mysteries of the Redemption, a treatise on out-of-body travel and mysticism. And that book will help you a lot because what it has a tendency to do, and I was told it was going to do this when I wrote it, is that people start reading it and they start having spontaneous experiences. But alongside those, or after you finish those, you might also want to start with some of these mystical theology reads, because when you start cultivating the inner spirit, the experiences start to erupt spontaneously as well. So you want to be doing those three things for starters. I also have a little devotional called Astral Projection Made Easy, and I have a great narrator who recently narrated it. And it's really a good thing because what it does is it gives you all the the steps and stages, and you can meditate on one each day for, I don't know, it's 20 or 30 days, and it gives you things to focus on each day. And
Hmm.
and so
Can you find that on your website?
absolutely. And all of those things you can download for free, or you can purchase them if you'd like the Audible version, you go to Audible for that, but you can get them on the website, download them, and they'll give you a lot of information. Now, in terms of starting out, a lot of people do have the issue of getting afraid and going back, but there's also just the being startled because it's so powerful. There's going to be so many different stages that are going to happen as you start this meditation practice and putting out that intention that you want these experiences. You're going to have to deal with any kinds of fears that you have, and some of the ones that I remember off the top of my head would involve things like people are afraid of dying.
Hmm.
They're afraid of, will I not be able to come back to my body?
Yeah, that was
Um,
me.
yes. People are afraid of, will somebody else be able to come into my body? People are afraid of the intensity of the experience. And all of those things are easily explained. So first of all, the one of the simple things I explain to people is most people are experiencing some level of out of body travel all the time. It's just very subconscious. And
Yeah,
so this is already happening to you, and you just don't remember it. And
yeah,
so when you become capable of it coming up to a conscious level, um, that's really what's happening. And so when you're thinking of like, well, will I not be able to return to my body? You remind yourself that you're not actually doing anything different than what you're experiencing, because we are multidimensional beings. And so part of what happens when we're sleeping at night is we are being, it's like the way it was shown to me is the earth and the spiritual sphere. The spiritual sphere is this above semicircle. The earth is this below semicircle, and everything in those two semicircles works together to create all the life within both cosmological fields.
mm,
And what I would be shown, the angels would take me out and show me how they would work on the subconscious minds of people as they're sleeping. And they would take people out who were subconsciously astral traveling or traveling out of body to other spheres, but they were not going to remember these things. So when you start becoming aware of an out of body experience or becoming more lucid in your dreaming, because that sometimes happens before you start having full blown conscious remembrance of astral or out of body travel, what you need to remember is that you are just remembering something that is already happening. So you don't need to be afraid that you won't come back to your body. You don't need to be afraid that something else is going to come into your body, because nothing is going on that's different than what is already happening. You're just
yeah,
becoming more conscious of what's happening. And why is that a good thing? It's a good thing because becoming conscious of this process makes it possible for you to bring into your conscious awareness the types of things that you are being taught in these higher spiritual spheres, and literally bringing heaven to earth every time you do. So all of these things that are being subconsciously filtered in to try to help you to bring your soul's energy up, to help you to better understand things, is now becoming conscious. So
mm,
you are actually participating in the redemption process of your soul, the path of purification. And by
yeah,
doing that, you are accelerating your soul's progress. And
yeah.
so,
I think you're right on because I think the path to higher consciousness for most people comes through meditation.
yes, it does.
And that is one of the things that it could be a little effort in the beginning to sit down and take 20 minutes away. But then you got the saying that if you don't have 20 minutes to do that, you can't have the time to meditate for 20 minutes. You need to meditate an hour. So,
Yes.
so that's an old saying, and I think
And then I'll say you need to take 3 hours.
yeah, yeah. Later on, you're going to enjoy it because of the rewards you will have. There is When you're in a meditative state, you communicate with the universal mind so
Right.
much better. You get brilliant ideas, you get solutions, you can have voices come to you, sometimes mental or visual images that show up after a while. What happens in meditation is phenomenal. You just need to try it if you aren't doing it. And uh, when we were talking about karma earlier, there's something I kind of need to say because there are people that have done horrible things in their own mind. Let's say you were sent into war and you killed a bunch of people, bombing parts of cities, bombing, killing people, and it may not be as bad as you thought. Because I have a guy here in Tucson that I know. He was a sniper for the U.S. Army in Vietnam, and I think he said he had 20 or 21 confirmed kills. And he came back, started going to church, and the preacher told him, "For what you did, you're going downstairs. You're not going up." You know, I playing on words here, but he was totally convinced he was going to hell. And then he had a near-death experience. He went through the tunnel and everything was wonderful. There was phenomenal feeling of love. He met spiritual beings on the other side, some of his relatives, and everything was wonderful. And he came back. They told him, "Go back, you got more work to do." And he came back and he didn't see hell. None of the stuff that he was afraid of happened. So it may not be that way. Even if you did things, you were ordered to do it. And if you didn't, there would be punishment. So none of that stuff happened for him. And I think we should keep that in mind, that whatever we have up here, it's a lot of times what happened in our lives, especially in the physical life. But there is call it salvation or whatever you want. Even if you've done horrible things, you may not have to live through any of that you did. Can you comment a little bit on this for me?
Sure. And I'll try to do this in as fair and just a way as I possibly can, because these kinds of things are very complex, because this is always what we is this is part of the energetic truth of reality. This is part of God's judgment, not our judgment. And the first thing I would say is that from my perspective, that no one has the right to tell somebody that
Yeah, I know.
that they are going to hell for something they do not understand. Um, in a situation that involves the military or war, there is different factors. And
Hmm.
some of those factors involve some of the things you mentioned. There's duty, there are other, world events and factors that we do not know about. It's very possible when this gentleman crosses over, he may meet people that whose lives were saved because of some of the things that he had to do.
Yeah,
We do not know the story of the sniper hits that he was told to make. We do not know who these people were or what they were going to do, and the questions and things, decisions that have to be made during wartime and that are made by a whole series of, people in different positions are very complex and often are not there's just no good answer for many of them. And he was doing his duty as it was given to him at the time. And uh, I do recall other situations where people, I've gone to situations where, and I'm hesitant to go here because I want to be very careful because I also do not want to judge the people
Yeah,
who are judging, you know.
yeah,
But I went to a funeral of a young man who had taken his own life, and there was a preacher at the funeral that just went on and on about how he was in hell. And I found that to be an extremely inappropriate message because, in my perception, we do not know this.
yeah,
And in my experience, um, the God that I have experienced in the out of body travels and the mystical worlds that I have experienced loves the people, the creatures that he has created, and he would understand absolute despair and the type of moments that bring souls to suicide. I think
yeah,
God would understand mental illness, as I also believe that God understands that there are people who are called to be soldiers or military or police, who are put in a very responsible position where they have to make decisions
yeah,
that will be very difficult to carry, but they may have to do something that will have another effect that in effect will oftentimes protect a lot of other people.
yeah,
And and sometimes they're asked to do things and it doesn't turn out the way that they thought it would because we're both old enough to know that sometimes we can go into things with very good intentions and things don't turn out the way we think they're going to turn out. And obviously in war, um, the enemy also has a part in how things turn out. And so decisions can be made that they believed were right at the time, and it turns out terribly, you know? And so I believe that it's really important that love, kindness, and honor and respect is paid to our veterans and those who have had to be in the position of such things and have had to stand in the gap for the rest of us,
yeah,
as well as police officers, anybody who has to, ICE officers, border patrol, people who have to stand in a gap and have to make decisions that are uh, intended to protect the rest of us who are benefiting from the fact that they
yeah,
are saying, I will stand. I will stand in your place and make these tough decisions and put myself in the line of fire, whether
yeah,
it's the right decision, the wrong decision, or whatever. You know what I mean? And I think that we owe a certain honor and respect to that, um, that uh, we should also then extend to this understanding that God understands these things even greater than we
yeah.
do.
I
And
totally agree. Absolutely. We need them because they, even though things are happening, let's say at the front line, they are
right,
protecting what is behind it. They love what's behind it. And because of that love, they end up doing what they do, not necessarily of their own doing, but because of orders and duty. And I think there is nothing wrong with that because when you think about it, when you get on the other side, what is right and wrong? No. It's only experiences that the soul essence will learn from and grow from and gain higher spiritual capacity.
right. And here there's a big difference. Like I'm just going to make a really, it might be a bad comparison, but I'll make it anyway. So there is, for anybody, just use your common sense. There is no comparison between a soldier who stands in the gap for the protection of people who may have had to kill 21 people versus a serial killer who killed 21 people play and fun of it, who does so out of evil intention,
Yeah.
that soul is going to be dealing with some lower realm activity, most likely at their death. And and so that one, yes, we might be able to say they're probably going to be looking at some serious issues.
Yeah, some learnings on the other side too.
Right. And I can say, like, for instance, I've had experiences where I have been taken because my experience, I have traveled to heavens, hells, and purgatories. And I have seen souls like, sometimes the leaders, if they have led in a way that was evil, so they end up in some of these bad places where they have to figure out how they're going to atone for the wrongs they have committed. So, like, for instance, I have seen and spoken with Saddam Hussein and Omar Gaddafi in hell. And so we have there, but there's the difference. These are leaders who chose to do things in a particular way that was evil. And I know more about Saddam Hussein. I know less about Muammar Gaddafi. I just know that that's where he was, right?
Hmm.
Um, and because from what I understand, I don't know much about what he actually did. So it's different for, I don't have a lot of information about it.
Yeah, he wasn't that bad actually. That was all about oil.
Yeah, so it's interesting because with that, it's like, okay, well, I don't know why he's there. So
Yeah,
it's a mystery, right?
yeah.
So, but what we see is that people will go through when people cross over, they go through periods of purification as well. And the less purification we have done during our life, the more purification or purgatorial realms we might go through in the afterlife where we can undergo these things to help us to recognize like the evil that we do, the things that we believe or think that are actually dark or incorrect according to God's eternal truth. And so we do those things and we slowly move higher and higher and higher. But the great thing is that we can start that process in this
Yeah,
life. We can accelerate that. But
yeah,
I think based on what you were talking about, I think it is really important to remember above all else that God is a God of love. In fact, that's what he is. He is the essence. His entire energy is the emanation and essence of love. You don't
hmm,
understand what love is until you have stood in and bathed in that unconditional love and light of God. And love is mercy. And God's love is infinite mercy and understanding. And
yeah,
I have heard and talked to so many people who've had these near-death experiences where God understands our weaknesses. We have to remember that God allowed us to be fallen creatures. He knew that we would struggle with all of these human frailties and things that we don't understand and we mess up.
yeah,
He knows this. He's already expecting us to be like this. And so we need to love one another as he loves us. And we already know how he loves us.
yeah,
He loves us with unconditional love and mercy. So let's love one another in that same way and stop judging our brothers and sisters as if we have the knowledge and wisdom of God, which we don't. We don't. The only thing we do know is that God's judgment will emanate from love and
yeah.
mercy. And we should do the same for one another.
Oh, you've been mentioning God several times here, and it brings me to a question I gotta
Sure.
ask. Could you spend, we're getting on towards the end here, but could you spend the next 2 minutes explain what is God?
God is the creator of the universe, but he is also the universal being of life. He is the emanation of love and light that moves through the universal stream of existence. And we as human beings have separated from that in a certain sense. And what we're trying to do is part of the reason we feel so like outcasts is because we have cast ourselves away from that universal being, which is that emanation of God, which is love. And so we are scattering. We're scattering because we are scattering away from that oneness, that clarity, that love, that mercy, when you see it in the out of body travel state, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, it's literally a stream of energy that moves throughout the universe. It's a universal being of
Intelligent.
energy. And when you enter into it, you feel as though you are like lying in the most loving arms of it's, but it's not, it's like you just fall into it, and it's empty space, but yet it's not.
Yeah,
And you're
so
moving with it.
so it could be synthesized down to it an intelligent, creative energy.
You can synthesize it down, but I never do that myself
Um,
because people try so hard to make God human. And I want
mhm.
to keep God divine. I want people to remember who He is. He is greater and grander than anything you could imagine.
Yeah.
And He moves through all life and all being in such a way that it is hard to even fathom. And I've had these beautiful experiences where I've been allowed to witness and move with him as he just moves through millions of lives, changing them from the throne room of God. And it's just
Mm.
unbelievable. And
Yeah.
so I always recommend don't synthesize him down. Keep him grand, keep him divine, keep him as he is, because that's where you want to meet him. Don't ask him to meet you here. That's the place where everyone, you're all saying the same thing. You don't want to come back here.
Yeah.
Okay, start now. Meet him where he is
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember back in the dark ages when I was a little kid, about that tall. I my mom dragged me to church every so often, and the preacher up there, he explained very clear to us, God, that's this really old guy sitting in the clouds up there. He's got long white hair, long white beard, and he knows what you did, kid. And you better repent. You better ask for forgiveness. And of course, he was a white guy, he had to be, being in Norway. So this is what we grew up with. And as a kid, I had so hard a time buying into that, but I was kind of waffling on it until I, you know, got into the age of reason, which is about 7 probably. And people are told, especially there are other religions, Muslims and Christians alike, we have, in order to understand religion, we got to go to the source of it, where it came from. Then we will understand. Go back, read the note from the church meeting at Nicaea or Constantinople now.
Mhm.
Read the meetings note from there, and you can find out how they lied about half of it. And same thing with other religions. Not everything is as it appears to be, and what the interpretation is giving to you. And that's my comment anyway. I don't know religions. I have another saying, and that is that it would stagger the mind to imagine how far humanity would have come was it not for religion and government.
Well, what I recommend people to consider, I have a book called Near Death and Out of Body Experiences,
Yeah.
Auspicious Births and Deaths of the Prophets, Saints, Mystics, and Sages. And what it does is it takes you to the birth point of every major religion and the most important birth points. And this is the revelation, the out of body experience that started these great moments in history. And what you can do is it helps you to remember and recognize that a religion started from a grand moment of revelation in
Yeah.
almost all cases. And it helps you to go back there. You can obviously download that book at my site too and see what happened in these great moments when these religions were born. And when you go back to the birth points and when you go back to the revelation and the ancient sacred texts, there is gold in them, but you have to be willing to glean through.
Yeah.
And some of the books that I've written in the world religion section do that for you so that you can find the gold that is in there. And you can see that the religions themselves do form a structure that can help you, but then you want to allow yourself to use the structure to uh, to fly free into the arms of God,
Yeah.
whichever, whatever practice you are born into or whichever one you're practicing, you'll find that there is a way within it. There's a mystical path within it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I give religion a bad time a lot of times, but they did some really good things. At the meetings in Nicaea, they did some phenomenal things because there's a lot of people these days, Jesus never existed. There's nothing written about him except for the Bible. Oh, yes, there is. There is absolute evidence that that guy, he, his name was not Jesus, but he did exist and he did some phenomenal things which they took and put into that what is now called the Bible. The first draft of it was created in Nicaea. That's all. But they took also some things out of the Sumerian tablets and other writings and put in there, snuck in there also. But they were good things until, of course, the emperor Constantine that ordered it done, he censored a lot of it, and there's some question about some things. But I highly recommend everybody needs to read the Bible at least once, and also same for the Quran. Read it, and you will understand what it is. Take the love and the good out of each one of those books, and if you all the things that says you're supposed to go out and kill the ones that don't think like we do, forget that. Take
Yep.
the love and import it to yourself and you're going to be all right.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, we're down to the bone here at the end. I have one last question for you, and then I'll let you go. If you could talk to the whole world right now and the world is listening, what would you tell them?
Oh gosh. I would say love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and serve him in whatever way that you have been given, whatever your gift is. Don't forget that every gift that you have um, it is a gift that you can give to God. So everything that you are doing in your life, whatever you are, whether you're a waitress, whether you're a garbage man, whether you're a little writer like me, whether you're doing whatever you're doing, offer that to God and make your life an offering daily to God and start loving him with all your heart and soul. And you will be surprised at how quickly your life will start transforming. And if you wish to experience some of these higher states of consciousness, start with loving God and asking him to show you the truth, even if that truth contradicts what you currently believe or is different from what you have believed to be true, and be willing to be taught in that
Yeah,
way. And if you are willing to be taught, you will receive teaching and
yeah,
you will be taught and you will be surprised what will come to you. But just
yes,
remember, it starts with that love. Love God with all your heart, and all
yeah,
will be added to you.
yeah. And sometimes all we have to do is to ask.
Yes, Yes.
So
Ask.
just ask.
Ask and you will receive.
There you
Don't
go.
forget to ask. Don't forget to ask.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for being with us. This was wonderful. It was a really deep, deep session.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
for those of you out there that listen to all of this are still with us, go back and listen to it again. There are pearls in here that you missed the first time through. And then go to her website and poke around and find things that you really need, you feel you need to see and hear. Outofbodytravel.org. Go visit the website. Your life will be better for it.
One more thing. I did write a book on the general councils of the church. It's in the overview series if anyone wants to read about it. So it covers the 22 different general councils of the church. So people can go get
Oh,
that too and take a look at what you were talking about.
yep, that's good. That is good. All right. Okay, well, thank you very much. And then for those of you out there watching us now, if you're on YouTube, please subscribe. That'll help us a lot. And until next time, be good to each other.